The path to Brexit has been long and arduous, and many would say that for the government it's been increasingly steep. But as the end gets closer, the calls for a so-called people's vote get louder. So, would you like to do it all over again? 62% of people in this area voted to leave. Whitby once boasted a thriving fishing fleet, and its demise is at the heart of the town's anger with the EU.
I've just seen a massive decline over the years. Getting out of the European Union will give us, by law, control of up to 200 miles from our coastline, and that is only a good thing for fishing. Democracy is democracy. The country voted. What is it going to be? Best of three?
But catching fish is one thing, selling them is something else. Much of Adrian Noble's shellfish is sold to the EU. He fears any border delays would make that impossible, but it's more than just exports that make him want another say.
We were led down the garden path. I voted out in the first instance, but on hindsight and everything else that's gone on with it all, I just think we need another referendum, because I would vote to stay in this time.
But are these views from the seas reflected on the streets?
They had a vote and the decision was made and they should stick to it.
Not overly happy with what they're doing at the moment, and so I'd rather go for a second referendum, and I'm more in favour of how Labour are dealing with things.
I mean, I actually voted to remain, but now, you know, you've got to go by the result of the referendum, and I think I can see the possibilities outside the EU.
For many a Brexiteer, it's all about global trade. And of course, Whitby was integral in establishing Britain as a world power. Captain Cook learned his trade here, and the Endeavour was built here. And the owner of this replica of the legendary vessel says there is a need to change course, but not to turn back.
I think it makes a mockery of all the system if we have another vote. There should be much more positivity, right from the media, right through politicians. You know, at the end of the day, we are where we are, so let's be positive. I'm sick of all the doom and gloom.
The Conservative majority here is just 3,435. If there was a snap election, judging the current mood on Brexit could make all the difference. It may be a sound that's led many a battalion into war, but for the head teacher at this school, it's the fear of these drums falling silent that's inspired his fight to stop budget cuts in education.
My Year 6 children have got a really talented percussionist who teaches them how to drum, and they love doing it. All of these things though cost money. It's about £55,000 my school needed to save. How am I going to save that money? But whatever happens, there will be less adults in my school in September, providing the quality of education we're able to at the minute.
100,000 people have signed a petition launched here in Blaydon calling for schools to be given better funding. And head teachers across the region are having to balance the costs of putting on extra classes like this with the costs of staffing, equipment and even maintenance.
I was told that one of the head teachers in my area had to make a member of the cleaning staff redundant to meet the budget that year, but was so upset about it and realised that this just wasn't practical, it wasn't safe and hygienic. He is now paying that member of staff, that member of cleaning staff, from his own salary.
In real terms, the amount of cash being spent on each child's education here in Blaydon has fallen by more than £300 since 2013. There's been a bigger decrease in Redcar, and it's closer to a £400 cut in Carlisle. But the government says the USA is the only major economy which spends more on state education than the UK. This Conservative councillor and teacher says they are putting more money into schools, but they still have to balance the books.
It's a very genuine campaign that they want more money to benefit the pupils in those schools. Politically, of course, the government can't deliver the impossible. If it inherits an enormous deficit that has to be paid off, and the Labour Party would have done very, very similar, then it's got to take that into account, and it's only when the economy starts growing and revenue comes in that they can even think about providing more money to schools, which of course has happened this year, and the aim would be to do that in future.
Tag rugby helps pupils get fit while having fun, but it's another example of an extra class at risk from the cuts. Blaydon Labour MP Liz Twist will lead a debate on the issue in Parliament. But with education spending already running at more than £100 billion a year, how much more can the government realistically be expected to do?
In real terms, we know that schools have lost and a huge amount, 2.8 billion I think it's estimated, is needed to restore it to the level it was at 2015. So the figures might be going up or staying the same, but actually what you can do with them is decreasing, and that's the real problem, and that's what the government's got to address.
But while the MPs argue over the issue, the man who started the petition insists it's not about politics.
Head teachers across the country have spoken, and parents have supported them. And what we would like to happen is for schools to be funded sufficiently and adequately for us to do the job that we're here to do, which is to give our children the highest possible quality of education, and that's what they deserve.
There are many different departments competing for government money, but it's hoped the campaign launched here in Blaydon will strengthen the case to give education a bigger share of the cash.